Hey everyone, welcome to episode 18 of the GameFellas podcast, the retro to modern game podcast. And as you'll know, I am not your Zack because unfortunately he is in another castle. His computer, I guess, revolted against him, is in need of repair. So until then, I thought, Zack asked for me to host this episode. So I got to choose the topic, and this is a topic I think, especially in the wake of recent events, that I think would be pretty fun to discuss, which is the topic of basically video game practices from companies, business video game practices throughout the ages, from the cool stuff to the shady stuff, kind of, I guess, the business side of things and how that's affected us as players, examples of things that we've liked, example of things that have really turned us off. And so I have our little opening premise here. But before we do that, let's talk about what we've been playing. Do you want to begin, Soren?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's going to be relatively short and sweet with this because obviously with the current kind of global situation going on, I've basically picked up one game that happened to, by pure fluke, launch at the perfect time when everyone is stuck indoors and needs something to play, and that is Animal Crossing. I've just been playing Animal Crossing. I've literally nothing else has gone into my Switch. I've not loaded up any other game on my PC. Like for the past couple of months or so that I've been stuck in my flat, I've been playing Animal Crossing. So
you know what's crazy is even in the normie business world, so I don't work in any kind of video game industry at all, but even in the normie business world, people who don't play games, don't really talk about games, they're talking about Animal Crossing. And it's funny to hear because most of these people think it's like a new game, like it's a whole new franchise. They're like, I think it's kind of like Minecraft. It's really funny.
Yeah.
And then I can
it's been around it's been around since the N64 if you count the Japanese version.
Yeah,
so it's right. like that's crazy. I mean, when you talk about like how far reaching this has become, Financial Times did an article on Tom Nook. Like like the Financial Times.
That's great.
What is going on?
Was it like a satirical one, or are they actually trying to get some kind of message
I honestly
across?
don't know. I don't like. I haven't actually read it. I saw loads of like tweets and stuff of people saying like, "What the hell?" Like the Financial Times has just released an article about Animal Crossing and Tom Nook, and I think maybe it was done tongue in cheek, but I think they did like some sort of thing on him being like an entrepreneur or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like he's a pretty. Speaking of grime, I feel like when I played Animal Crossing on the GameCube, I was like, this dude is grimy as hell.
Yeah,
He puts you into debt right away, and he puts your ass to work, and then he doesn't make any.
He doesn't charge interest though.
Yeah, that's true.
He does, I mean, yeah, he doesn't charge interest, but some of his practices are definitely shady.
Yeah, so I've been hearing a ton about Animal Crossing. It is funny how it's kind of hit at exactly the right time because I feel like had the situation not developed as it was, Animal Crossing would have came and gone as it always does, but it just landed at just the right time.
Well, I mean, I mostly agree with that. Like, I think given the popularity of the Switch, I think this probably would have still been the most popular version of Animal Crossing. I think it would have still done amazingly well. But yeah, absolutely. The ridiculous timing of this. Like I've got friends who either aren't really like massive gamers or like especially like their partners have like one friend in particular, his partner, I don't think she's ever played a video game. And she saw an advert for Animal Crossing and was like, oh, that looks kind of cute and fun. Like, what's that? And he has a Switch. So he was like, well, yeah, look, it looks like it's something kind of, cute and fun that we can both play. And, so I'll get it. Everyone, like literally everyone has been picking it up and playing it because the actual quality of the game it far surpasses anything that came before it.
Yeah, I have a bit of a theory too about its popularity right now where I actually made a video about this of basically games as sort of a bit of therapy or a bit of comfort. I went from personal experience where I was going through a really hard time in my life, and I found all of a sudden that I was spending not hundreds, but a lot of hours playing the Chow Garden and Sonic Adventure 2 because I found it so peaceful and relaxing.
Yep.
And so I was like, video games I think can be pretty therapeutic as well.
Definitely.
People always focus on the violence and focus on us, totally. Especially like this episode, right? We're always talking about like all the shady sides of gaming, all the problems with it. But I think if used correctly, games can also be extremely therapeutic and relaxing.
Well, I mean, in its purest form, video games are escapism. You know, and people like different types of escapism. You know, some people like running around shooting monsters in the face. Other people like running around planting flowers and
Right.
like working their asses off for Tom Nook. Like it's there are different ends of that spectrum. And like you said, like whenever there's anything against video games, they always bring up your Call of Duties and your Dooms and stuff like that. It's never like, well, here's like Cooking Mama, or like here's
or like
Super
Sonic
Mario
Adventure
or
2,
Sonic.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's totally that, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there as to why Animal Crossing is so good right now, is because people want that escapism. Like you have got the perfect game for kind of continuing to live a little life when in reality you can't live your life.
So
But
how
yeah,
about
that's
you,
so that's
Johnny?
what I've been playing.
Well, honestly, to tail off what Soren just said, I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 like I have in like every past couple episodes. That's all I play anymore. My goal has been to get all of my classes, every single one that can get to 80. I've been pulling it up to level 80, up to the cap. I am 2 levels away as of right now, as of the recording of this. I am 2 levels away from completing that goal. So I've got my Samurai. I need to get it. It's at 78. At the end of today, I will have it up to 80, and I will be done. After that, I'll get to start playing. I'm like sitting here staring at my game shelf, and it's just like, oh man, it's all the stuff I'm going to play.
Everything has a stern look watching you. Like,
yeah,
what are you doing, man?
Yeah. But I'm excited for that. But what to tail off what Soren just said, especially with living another life and having that escapism, because you can't do that in the world right now. I've actually been dabbling in the RP aspect of Final Fantasy 14, like the actual. I'm talking as my character, as I'm going into these.
I see.
These player-run bars in game, because I can't go to a bar in real life, and it's kind of scratching that itch. Not really, but I mean enough that I go in and I can people watch, because that's what I normally do when I go to a bar. I'll go to a bar, I'll people watch, I'll sip on my drink, I'll talk to a friend if my friend's there. I might strike up a conversation with a stranger, but not all the time. And I just people watch, and it's fun to go into these player-run bars and kind of lightly role play as my character. But what I'll do is I'll just go sit in a corner and I'll just watch everybody else role play, because their stuff is all out loud, so you can actually see what the characters they've made up for themselves and everything, and it's really interesting and fun to watch. So I've been doing quite a bit of that lately as well.
Am I right in thinking that, because I'm a friend of mine, he's really into Final Fantasy 14, and am I right in thinking that there are actually certain servers which are specifically roleplay servers, so you only roleplay? Or
not in Final Fantasy 14. I know that there are roleplay servers in World of Warcraft, or there were when I played years ago. I haven't played in a long time, but no, there are no specific roleplay servers in Final Fantasy 14.
Right. Yeah, it might be World of Warcraft then that I'm thinking of, but that kind of thing that makes sense. Like I think people would get a lot out of that.
So I definitely want to know, since you do play a lot of MMOs, do you feel like with the situation MMOs are popping off real hard? Like, are their player bases exploding right now? I could see that.
Right now, it is busy. And it's funny because we're so far from a patch. The next patch isn't coming out until the end of June. The last expansion came out last year, and like I have a login queue every day to get into Final Fantasy 14. 3 months ago, I didn't. I just log in and I just pop right in. But now I have a login queue, and it's great because that means that my duty finder queue times are way down. So it's like everybody's playing, everybody's doing stuff. I mean, there's always stuff to do because there's so many people on. So you can always find somebody to run content with and stuff. So I definitely feel that in Final Fantasy 14.
It does make me wonder if, do you think that when this all, kind of finishes and we go back to some sort of normality, do you think that there might be a kind of increase in general of people who play games? Because I feel like there's going to be, your people like who maybe lapsed a bit on MMOs and they've kind of gone back to them now. when things go back to normal, will they be like, well, I really enjoyed playing that whilst I was stuck indoors, so I'm gonna keep playing it.
That's a great question, and honestly, I mean, for me, my time gaming will definitely decrease. Like, I will definitely, because right now work is slow. I work from home. Work is slow. I can't go anywhere really, other than like the grocery store or the gas station. So I get up, I log into work, I make sure my work's done, and then I log into Final Fantasy. And I'm in Final Fantasy from like 9 a.m. till, sometimes midnight, just because there is nothing else to do. I am not going to be, it's not going to be like that for me whenever the world starts working again.
I kind of feel like, tying into that, I don't know if there'll be more gamers, but I do think that like gamer type culture is going to be more respected, or like online style culture, because like I said, I work a normie boy job, and no one else in my company is a gamer at all. I'm the only one. And it's funny with how online and remote everything has been. Like, all of my skills, like being able to create videos, being able to do Zoom calls, being able to do all this like online networking, are insanely valuable to the company right now. They're like, holy shit, where'd you learn to do all this? It's like, well,
I just do it.
I'm a millennial, right? It's like, I'm a millennial, right? This is what we do. So I think coming out of COVID, I'm hoping that at least the older boomer bosses will at least start to appreciate like these skills, these online skills, and start to see that, I'm getting on a little bit of a rant here, but like online life is not this like loser thing. Like, online skills are a fundamental skill for the future.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. What have you been playing, Mark?
Well, I've been a good boy because I wanted to have a nice juicy section for this for like 4 weeks now, and I haven't been on the show. So I've got a lot under my belt. I'll start by kind of tying into what Tony's been up to. I played a bit of the FF7 remake. I played the demo, and then I played a little bit at my friend's place beyond the demo. And what is your thoughts, Tony, being the FF fan that you are, the FF expert?
I have not played it yet. Mostly because I've been waiting until I am done with this task in Final Fantasy XIV. I feel like, from what I've seen, I played the demo from what I've seen like on Twitch and stuff like that. I feel like the quality of it is probably pretty damn good. It doesn't bother me that they're releasing it in sections. That just means more content in the future, and that's cool. More staying power for that game. But I feel like the only thing that I'm a little skeptical about, and I haven't played it yet, but when I do, I think the thing that I'm not going to enjoy so much is that it sounds like they've made the story even more convoluted than it was before.
Yep.
And
that's for sure.
And I just feel like that's unnecessary, and I don't really understand why they would go and do that. But hey, whatever. We'll see when I play it. I'll see how I feel about it.
I wanted to get have you played FF7 at all, Sorn? I think
mentioned... like 15 million times. I finished it on Switch like 2 or 3 months ago, so for like the billionth time. So yeah, I've played it a lot. I'm very familiar with the game.
Oh yeah, because so basically I follow a lot of people who are like hardcore into FF7, and so it's funny when I played it, I barely play any Final Fantasy games. I'm a shmup dude. I barely play RPGs. I was like, this is sick, this is lit, and I was loving like the voice acting, like all the things that cater to like the casual people. I'm the casual people, so I enjoyed it. But I know the hardcore FF7 fans, some of them are just outraged. They're just pissed. So
that's the thing, right? It's like, because I've not actually, and I mean, some people will probably shoot me down for this and say, "Oh, you're not a proper gamer," but I've not actually. I've not actually played Final Fantasy VII myself, right?
I haven't played it either.
Yeah, well, but I know it. I know the full thing. I watched Justin play it, because when we had it growing up as kids, he was the one that played it. Like, most of the time, he would play an RPG and I would just watch. So I still, I got to experience the game. I got to experience the story, and so I know a fair amount about it. I've just not played it myself. I do actually have the version they released for the Switch, and I am planning on playing that.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah, it looks
because it has
to me
fast forward and you can turn
exactly
off random encounters.
Exactly. To me, it's perfect because it means that I can play the original, but with some of the kind of quality of life things that you get from gaming nowadays. So I'm absolutely planning to go and play that. But one of the things that I've kind of seen, and like you said about the kind of real hardcore fans, where they're complaining about the remake. It's almost like the biggest thing I see them complain about is the fact that it isn't the original Final Fantasy VII, but just with like nowadays
perfect
budget
graphics.
and perfect graphics.
That's exactly it. Like,
but that's not what it's meant to be. That's not what it's meant to be. If you want to play the original, play the original. If you want to play the original where it looks amazing, there are a million mods out there to make it look amazing.
Yes.
This is meant to be a slight reimagining of something that has become a cult classic. Like, and I don't get it.
I'm 100% on board with that. I love the original game. I played it a million times. I've played it to 100% completion several times. I like turn-based combat in most, most of the time I like turn-based combat. In this case, why does it have to be another turn-based game? Why does it have to be exactly how it was before? I'm all for a fresh coat of paint because like I've played Final Fantasy VII. I've played Final Fantasy VII to death. I don't need to play the exact same game again with new official updated graphics. I mean, why? Yeah. I don't want to drop $60-$70 on a game that is the same game I've been playing for years just with a fresh coat of paint. No, I mean, that's a reskin experience. That's a whole
exactly. I can kind of see where people are coming from. But it's funny because this is the one time in my life where I'm not a hardcore person in this aspect. Like, if you guys follow my stuff, like I'm a hardcore shmup player, and so I'm like the person, if there's an extra frame of lag, I'm complaining about it, like what the hell, and like with fighting games and all that stuff. With RPGs, I'm not that way, and I actually think my perspective is when you go so deep into something, there comes a point where you kind of lose the like wider perspective of what other people are looking for and experiencing. Like I do this all the time with shmups. Like there's an extra frame of lag. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. And everyone else is like, who cares? Who cares? Some extra lag or whatever, or stuff like that. And I think this has been interesting to watch because when there are certain people who seem to go real deep into FF7 where, I mean, like the changes are changing like the themes of the game and changing like the overall meta narrative of all these different things. It's kind of like, I can understand that, but for me, if you're just like an average dude who doesn't really play Final Fantasy VII that much, I think the technical aspects of the remake are absolutely outstanding. I mean, it got me to play it, and I don't play RPGs, so it's doing something right.
I mean, at the risk of like opening up a massive can of worms, especially like in the comment sections and stuff like that, I kind of equate stuff like this to like similar to Star Wars, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's like
when I was growing up, like for me, the peak excitement around Star Wars was the fact they were going to make the prequel trilogy. So obviously the originals had been out and were loved and and adored, and they'd become cult. And then as I was kind of going through school, they were like oh yeah, they're going to make the prequel trilogy, and we're going to have all these characters, and we're going to be able to see like Darth Vader growing like from a kid and growing up.
Yeah, I remember all that.
And it was super exciting. And then they started to hit, and the fan base just went mental and were like, oh my God, these are a travesty. They insult and all of this. And it's like, I said at the time, I was like, even if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan and you're like, you absolutely hate this prequel trilogy, what does it matter? It doesn't, like, you can still enjoy the original trilogy.
Yeah, exactly.
They've not, I mean, okay, it's a slightly bad example in that George Lucas did actually go back and
change
around with the original trilogy. But, like, if you want, you can go and, get pretty much what you watched originally, and you can just ignore all the rest of the stuff. Like, even if you don't like the new trilogy, the, 7, 8, and 9, even if you think they're all a bunch of crap, just ignore them. It doesn't matter.
My thoughts on this is actually really similar, where I think fan bases just need to start adapting and learning a new skill, which is being able to selectively create what they think is canon and what is not as canon. Because with the FF7 people, with the Star Wars people, Like with the prequels, everyone's mad because it like recontextualizes the Force as being Chlorians or all that stuff. And I think what we're going to have to do as fans, this is just, I think the reality is we're going to have to just start ourselves creating the canons and saying, no, we consider this the canon, even if the company releases 8 trillion sequels to Star Wars, we consider this the canon. That way we don't have this, because it's just going to keep happening with all your favorite stuff. It's just going to keep going. That's the nature of the beast. So
yeah. Concentrate on what you love rather than concentrating on hating what other people do.
And there's definitely a cottage industry of that, which we'll talk about in the episode in the following topics. So I've played FF7 Remake. I actually spent a lot of time discussing and playing that. I didn't finish it, but I played a good amount of it. And then I've played Dead or Alive 6. We'll talk about that a little bit. That's a fighting game. Had a lot of controversy around that game. Been playing a ton of that. I also have been playing, let's see here, because I have a whole list since last time. Guilty Gear, that's a fighting game. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one too much.
I know of it. I've never played any of them.
Yeah, so you guys might hear more about that too, because there's a sequel coming out, Guilty Gear Strive, and it's changing up the formula. So I've been playing.
Is that the one that's by the people that did Dragon Ball Fighters and stuff like that? Yeah.
Its graphics look absolutely insane. By the way, I'll type this in for Zach to show on the screen in the video. But yeah, the graphics look absolutely insane.
Yeah, so I saw some clips, and it's like, I mean, even Dragon Ball Fighters basically looked like the anime, but like playable. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm trying to think beyond that. Of course, my usual shmup stuff. Oh, wait. I played DMC5. I remember in the end of year episode where I had all those games I said I wanted to play, but I didn't have the time. So I went back and played them. So I played DMC5. I was really enjoying it. I ended up kind of just stopping halfway through those. So I'm not sure if that's an issue with the game or just issue with my focus. But so DMC5 was also another one I put a ton of time in.
I've only ever played the first one, and I've never got very far. I think I got to like the first or second boss, and that was it.
Yeah, controversial opinion for the DMC fans, but I'm not really a big fan of the first one because it feels a little bit boring to me. I've always preferred like 3, 4, and 5 a lot more than the first one, but I think the first one kind of actually feels a little bit more like a Resident Evil game in some ways because it was like based on Resident Evil.
Yeah. It's like Devil May Cry, Onimusha, and Resident Evil are all like the same.
Yeah, the same engine and stuff.
Yeah.
I also played Resident Evil 4. That's just like a guarantee almost. Like you in FF14, like I'll sneak in some Resi 4 almost every other week.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's one of my favorite games.
I was going to say, with the way things are going, if they haven't already announced it, that's definitely getting a remake as well.
Oh, yeah. I made a video about that. So they did announce Resident Evil 4 remakes coming out. And I actually compare and contrast it with the FF7 remake. Like, and I was saying, when people were like, this was in the height of the outrage for the FF7 remake, and then Capcom just wanders in, yeah, we're making Resident Evil 4 while you're all getting mad about remakes, by the way. But I was saying that, I don't think there's a more hardcore Resi 4 fan than myself. I mean, you can be equally hardcore, but I don't think you can be more at this point. And I was saying the big difference is Resi 4 fans, from what I know, and I know a lot of them, we love the gameplay and the combat and the setting and stuff. So if they go in and change the story, it's like, it's Resi 4's story. We're not going to, have a gathering protest about it. So I'm like optimistic-ish. It probably won't be, because Resi 4 is such a classic, well-made game. It's not like FF7 where that was on the PS1 and there's like plenty of room for stuff. Like Resident Evil 4 is upscaled on the PS4 and PC. It looks really good. So I think what I'm hoping for with that remake is they just kind of remix it, basically. They just bring new stuff to the table, more campaign, just make it very different from Resi 4, because why not, right?
Yep. Well, yeah, I mean, Resi 4, like you said, it's already had the HD reskin.
Yeah.
Like many times.
And it looks good, so
yeah. So you don't need to just do the same game with an even better set of graphics. Switch it up, do some interesting things.
My hope would be, because I think there's some platinum staff involved, so my hope would be they kind of make it a little more like a platinum game, where a bit more action action-based, you know, like dual-wielding shotguns or something. But
Yeah.
I would love that. But it's interesting how Resident Evil fan base, some people really like the survival horror style titles, and then there's people like me who like the Resi 4 like action style. So I'm hoping they kind of keep it more action focused, but you never know.
Well, that was actually one of the things. So again, another, like, here's going to be another one where people say, "Oh, you're not a proper gamer." So I haven't played Resi 4, but I have played. But I've played Resi 1. I've played a bit of Resi 2, and I played a fully completed Resi 5. Like, I in fact played that multiple times.
Resi 5's pretty similar, not as good though, but it's pretty similar gameplay wise.
So yeah, this is what I was told. So I'm actually very excited to at some point go and play Resi 4, because I was told that Resi 4 is very similar to Resi 5. Like, you can see where a 5 evolved from 4, and some of the things I absolutely loved about 5 was the fact that it wasn't that survival horror game. It was kind of almost like an arcadey kind of, right, here's level 1, do level 1, kill as many zombies as you can, get to, you know, the end there, and then like later on you can come back and do level 1, but this time with a rocket launcher. Like, it was, you know, that I absolutely loved.
That is absolutely Resi 4, so you should play it, because that's exactly what you're going to get. That's why I like it so much as well.
Nice. And I think it's on Switch, so...
Yeah, the Switch port is really good, because it's in 60 FPS. It has all the extras. It's basically like the PS4 port. I was really impressed with it. I guess Digital Foundry said that the frame rate was a little bit iffy on the dock, but I always play it handheld, so it's rock solid in the handheld mode. I know that. So we're going to take a break, and then when we're back, we'll talk about our topic at hand. Okay, so here's the prompt for today's topic. Like I said, we're talking about shady / perhaps some positive as well business practices in video games. This is a huge point of discussion, especially if you're like a follower of Jim Sterling's channel or any of those type of channels that really do exposés on this sort of stuff. And so, especially with the what is it? Not Left 4 Dead. I'm sorry. Last of Us 2, like the controversy surrounding that. So I thought it'd be a pretty timely topic. So the opening premise is, over the past decade or so, thanks to the work of people like Jim Sterling, the various business practices of video game companies have received attention and scrutiny. Microtransactions, loot boxes, pay-to-win, developer crunch, all have become issues that are publicly acknowledged and talked about. For people playing video games today, there seems to be a nostalgia for the past where we look back and, don't really feel like these practices were as pervasive. However, are we just looking back with rose-colored glasses? Are things more exploitive now than they were before? What are you guys' perspective on this, especially since I think we've all been around playing video games for a good long time now?
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to do is get everyone's sort of general thoughts on this from a personal perspective, as far as when you're looking to buy a game or when you're looking about coverage of a game, how much does this influence you? How much does it make you willing to buy a game or not? Well, like how much importance do you place on these sorts of business practice side of things? Soren.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think, like, in general, I'm definitely for kind of the changes we've had. Like, as funny as it was back in the day to kind of find these bugs and exploits and things in games, and that I think I do prefer that we live in a world where a game can be launched and then, things like that can be patched with updates and things like that. And I'm not totally against extra content like DLC, whether it's paid DLC or whether it's just a free update. I'm not against any of that. But there are definitely good ways of doing it and bad ways of doing it. And in terms of like how it all affects my purchasing, I'm definitely a bit more wary when it's, say, like a new IP or from a new developer that I've not, or a new publisher is putting something out there, and I haven't got kind of like a history of what they're like. But if it's one of these companies, which may come up later, that do have very much a reputation, then I'm very cautious. I'm very like, okay, well, I know how you've acted in the past, and so I'm gonna maybe wait on this, or and see how things go. I think there's something that you do see quite a lot is when one company hits on something, every other company follows.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
you know, like it
dollar
felt
signs
like
pop in their eyes.
Totally, yeah. So as soon as and I couldn't tell you who was first to do this, but the first company that say put loot boxes in their game, well, suddenly every game
was
had
it. Overwatch was a pretty early one though, right?
I don't think that was the first, though. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure loot boxes were before that. But, you know, things like that, like loot boxes, suddenly every game has loot boxes. Season passes, like it was either...
Oh my god, I hate season passes, dude.
Yeah,
so not... when I say season passes, I don't mean like DLC season passes, although they can...
Those suck,
yeah,
too.
they can get on the ship and fuck off. But...
Those have just taken over fighting games.
It's the more the seasons. So, like, I don't know, it probably would have been, say, like, maybe Fortnite that did it first, or Rocket League, or I know they were like but you know what I mean. It's like you pay for, like, you pay to be so you are entered into a season, which is, say, maybe like a month long or something, and then so you've paid, right? You have paid for something, but you don't get anything unless you sit there and put the hours in. It's like that's not how content should work.
I actually haven't heard of that before.
Oh yeah, that's on Fortnite. That's on Rocket League.
That's
it's on,
crazy.
Dauntless has it on. You know, like that's become quite a common thing now. Like Call of Duty has it. It's where you actually pay, like, say, like, you know, $10 or something, to basically have the ability to unlock stuff. Whilst you're playing the game, and you can't unlock that stuff if you don't pay for that season. If you pay for that season, but then say something happens and you can't play the game as much as you thought you could, or anything like that, tough shit. You've paid, they've got your money, you don't get the content. If you don't put the hours in to unlock that content, you don't get it. And bearing in mind that, like, we'll come on to this later, because one of my things I want to talk about is Call of Duty, but something they did, and I think they got quite a lot of bad press and bad feedback from the fans for it, was initially, and they have gone back and changed this, initially their first seasons that came out, to get from like level 1 to level 200, I think it went up to, you had to be playing the game for like 8 to 12 hours a day, every single day. Like, to even have a shot at getting to max level and completing that season. And obviously the prizes for, you know, getting up to there were the best prizes. So it's like, no, that kind of practice I'm not on board with. Like, if I pay for, like, I'm more than happy to support a company by paying for extra content. But if I pay for the extra content, I've paid you for it. Give me the fucking content. Don't make me pay for it and then, you know, make me sit there and have to, like, grind ridiculous amounts of hours to get something that I have already paid for.
Well, like, I understand why they do it. I don't agree with it, but what they do it for is that they want to increase their player base and player engagement, and they want to keep you invested. That way they can keep selling you stuff and just keeping their player rates up higher as well. Online games need high play rates.
That would be fine if they did these seasons as free updates.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to keep your player base high and keep your player base interested, do these seasons as free updates. Then you reward the people who do put the time in and play, because they will hit those high levels and get that cool content, and the people that don't won't. Right? Fine. But in that situation, it's then free. Like, I think charge you for it.
I think the reason they charge you is actually, you know, about like sunken cost, where if you pay for something, there's a part of your brain that says, I need to maximize this. I need to like make this worth my while. So not only do they get money, but they also kind of build this incentive for you to say, okay, I need to play this. I mean, otherwise I'm wasting my money.
But I would make the argument.
I don't agree with it, but that's what they're doing.
No, totally. Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely it. But I would make the argument of make your game fun to play in the first place. Like, if you want your fan base to stick around, make a game that's fun to play and that they want to stick around. Like, don't guilt trip your fans into sticking around because they've chucked another like $10 at you. Like, they've already laid $60 down for the game. Like, that should be the investment that keeps them sticking around. That and the fact you've made a good game.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of it too is it's interesting because I'm a fighting game player, so like player bases and stuff like that they're always on my mind because it really affects how much time you can put into a fighting game or not. And I think developers are trying to figure a way to control the player base, like to guarantee it. Where with online player bases, you never quite know what the fans are going to do. You actually don't. Like some games will come out and they have an amazing player base for some reason that you can't actually pinpoint why is this working. Then other like Team Fortress 2 or something, right? And then other times similar quality games will come out and they have like no players. So
yeah,
I don't agree with any of it, but I think it's all about trying to guarantee their goals or whatever, trying to manipulate the player bases to do certain things.
Well, it's just, like, I mean, I might as well get this out of the way now, but like with Activision and Call of Duty, like where it seems ridiculous with them is, so both of you familiar with Ready Player One?
That movie?
I'm familiar with it.
The movie?
Yeah, the movie. Have you seen the movie?
No,
I've not seen the movie, but I've heard about it.
I've not seen it. I've not read the book it's based on. I'm familiar with it, but that's it.
Okay, so basically, to kind of quickly summarize, you've got the inventor of essentially like VR and just this world that everyone can live in. That's a virtual world. Has passed away and has said that basically anyone who is a true gamer and can find his 3 Easter eggs will inherit his game and his world and everything like that. And the film is basically based around a kid that wants to do that, and it's he's the protagonist and he's doing it because he loves gaming, and the antagonist is basically the CEO of Activision. So
nice.
So like he's the guy that wants to he's employing loads of people to try and find these Easter eggs because he wants to control the game so he can maximize advertising and do all of this, right? And there's actually a scene in it where he's showing to his like board of directors or something like his plans for what they're going to do when they get these Easter eggs, because he's already he's basically saying like, no, we are going to get this. Like the thought that they aren't going to find these Easter eggs is like not even entered their heads. So he's like, right, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And he basically shows like, because everyone to play this has obviously VR headsets, they've worked out like what's the maximum amount of percentage-wise of visual space that they can take up with adverts and things like that, where it won't cause brain damage, right? So like that's what they've done, and they show an example, and it's basically there's this tiny little slither of where your viewpoint is, and then there's just like bam, 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 pop-ups and adverts and everything, right?
Right.
Call of Duty is that. Like so I checked out of Call of Duty with Black Ops 4 because I bought that because of the Call of Duty games. I really like Treyarch's ones. Like they're the ones that kind of started the whole Call of Duty Zombies and things like that.
Right. Are they the ones who did World War II, World at War, or are they the ones who did Modern Warfare 4?
They did World at War and then Black Ops and all of that. And I've really liked the zombies content that they've done. So I was on board for when Black Ops 4 came out, and I was excited about it. I was like, right, yeah, cool. There's going to be loads of new zombies content. They were introducing like their version of the Battle Royale type game as well. And
I heard about that.
Yeah, and it all looked really cool. I was like, yeah, I'm on board for this. I thought, okay, well, I'm somebody that tended to buy a Call of Duty game every kind of like 2 to 3 years. Like I wasn't buying every single one. So when that came out, I thought, yeah, I'll go in, I'll go in hard on this. I'll get the super duper deluxe edition, make sure I get the season pass and all of that crap. So I went in on that, probably spent like, I think it was like £100, so like $100, or probably be more for you.
More,
guys.
like 120 probably.
Yeah, like probably like 120. So I went in for that version thinking, okay, cool, that means I'll get everything. No. So I got the game, I got the season pass for the DLC. Then shortly after it released, they released the seasons, those kind of like we spoke about before, they released seasons, which you had to pay for. They added other little kind of DLC bits so that you could buy with, your COD points. And obviously to get the COD points, you had to buy them. So they started adding all these things. Then they said, Because from the start they were like, oh, I know it appears like there's loads of things that you can buy and all that, but it's all cosmetic. It's all cosmetic. It will never change the meta of the game. There won't be pay to win. It's all just to customize what your character looks like. Then they released a season where you had to get to certain points in that season to unlock a particular gun that isn't in the game anywhere else. And it's like, well, now people are getting weapons that I can't get anywhere else. Like that's not just a weapon skin, that's a whole new weapon. Like there's a whole new gun. Like, so you are changing, you are kind of making it slightly pay to win. And then the worst thing they did, where once they did this, I was like, yep, I'm done. Not buying another Call of Duty game. They waited for all the reviews to come in, that a lot of them praised them for the fact that they hadn't introduced loot boxes on top of all of this, waited for those reviews to come in, then dropped loot boxes.
I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And what's funny is I even remember, so my Call of Duty days were kind of on the 360 and PS3. My brothers still play it, I think, from time to time. They're both hella good at Call of Duty. Like, they're always like top leaderboards and stuff like that. And I remember even back then, there was one where they released, you had to buy a DLC gun on day one. And you could just destroy everyone with that gun. And I remember that happened to my brothers being like really frustrated about that. So yeah, Call of Duty has always had those kind of like pay to win mechanics in there, I felt like, or at least for a long time that I recall.
And it's grime. I mean, like I said, I didn't even when I was playing them, I wasn't buying them every single year, but so it might have been that they started it on one or two previous to that. But on Black Ops 4, that was the first time that I went, okay, you really clearly do not care about actually making decent games here. You just keep releasing the same game with an updated skin, and you try and find as many ways as possible to nickel and dime people. And like that is, like we were saying at the start of this, that's the kind of practice that makes me go, yeah, I'm not buying any of your games anymore.
So it sounds like, Soren, from your story, because I have a similar story too, you were actually like direct experience. This wasn't like you read this on Twitter and you're like, oh, well, I won't buy the game. It's like they had to like nickel and dime you to the point where you're like, I'm tapped out. Like, yeah. Right.
Totally, yeah.
How about you, Tony? What are your kind of attitudes towards this whole thing?
I don't play those types of games, really.
Well, not necessarily Call of Duty, but the topic
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like all of the games and all of the companies that do these sorts of things, for the most part, I don't play those types of games. I don't play games, like I could not tell you a single game that I play regularly or that I've played recently that has any kind of loot box or play to win mechanics to it at all. Like, I think the closest I would get is Final Fantasy XIV, where I pay a subscription, but we can get to that a little bit later when we talk about more positive experiences. But like, that's it. Like, the games I play are all like, they may have DLC that's attached to them, but it's like optional content. It's not content that you have to buy to experience the rest of the story or to win or to get better at the game. Like, most recent example would be I played a ton of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Yeah.
They released a new update to it, and they had some other DLC to it that really enriches the game. There's like a whole new house that you can play with, but I haven't done it, and I don't feel cheated out of the experience because I put 100 hours into the base game. I'm done. That's all
Fire Emblem is a very good example, actually, because I think of the companies, I'm not here to sing sunshine up Nintendo's butt because, like, I like Nintendo, but I'm not going to just do that. But I feel like of the companies...
I'm here for that one.
Okay. I feel like of the companies, Nintendo generally, like, keep themselves kind of, like, under control with this sort of things. Like, like they at least you have to give it to them for that. Like, they usually do a pretty good job about this. And I feel like, being a longtime Fire Emblem fan and, like, Pokemon and stuff like that, like, it is a bit of a difference, isn't it? At least for me, like, where Pokemon Red and Blue, right, they're like the same game, and you could say, like, oh, they're kind of exploitive where you have to buy the same game twice, which is sort of true, but at the same time, it's not quite the same as stuff like what Soren was talking about, where you buy the game and you're like fighting the game to try and beat it or play it because the transactions are just in like flooding in.
Yeah, and the thing with like Pokemon Red and Blue, that was more of Nintendo trying to push people to interact with other players, so you could trade Pokemon with other players and stuff. That was more of their just like, hey, don't sit there and play this game by yourself. Find people to play with. And that was way before, like Red and Blue was way before the internet, like online gaming for consoles and handheld things. And so that was kind of their way to get people to engage with each other. I
have a really good. Did you both play Pokemon as kids or?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
No. I kind of missed the.
Okay.
Boat on that
Because I wanted to do a little quick question. So for me, did you have both? Did you have Red and Blue?
I actually had Blue. I had
Blue as well.
My brother had Red. So,
yeah, my brother had Red as well. That's kind of how.
That's how it worked. For my parents, that sucked. They had to buy the game twice. But for me,
well, this is the interesting thing that I want to talk about here with like speculating with this company, because some people have just said that Nintendo did this intentionally to make you individually buy the game twice. But I always kind of wonder if it was more of a thing where if you were a kid, because with kids, you always had to buy 2 copies of handheld games. You always had to, because if you had brothers, you can't share your Game Boy with. It doesn't work. Like you guys rip each other's hair out. Like me and my brother, Red and Blue, it made sense because we always bought 2 copies of games and stuff like that.
So then you both had a different, like slightly different experience, and then it would actually like you'd be able to compete against each other with battles, but then you also had to like cooperate with each other to trade stuff.
But see, this is the thing. Like, I even though I didn't, I kind of missed the boat on Pokemon. Like, it was like when I was growing up, it was always like the kids kind of like a couple of years younger that like it was aimed at them. Like my age group kind of just missed it. But from what I know about Pokemon and from what I've seen, I don't think it was done in a, let's try and milk as much money as we can out of kids kind of way. Because from what I gather, like the differences, say, between Red and Blue is next to nothing, except that there's a few exclusive Pokemon in this one and a few exclusive Pokemon in this one. You still get the full game. You can still do the whole game. You still get access to everything. There's just a couple of Pokemon that are exclusive to each one. And from what I gather, you can trade them anyway.
Yeah. And the Pokemon that are exclusive on either side aren't like game-breaking Pokemon one way or the other.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's always an alternative for the other side that you can use that would do similar things. So.
And I do wonder too, there's this whole idea of like you need the whole Pokedex and you need to complete the game and stuff like that. I just feel like modern gamers are more in tune with that sort of way of playing games. But when I was a kid, this is just my experience, I didn't know anyone who played games like that. I didn't know anyone who's like, I got to complete this Pokedex, dude. Like, it was all about just, you play the game, you beat it, you're like, cool, we're moving on. But maybe that's just me.
Do you want to know something kind of interesting, like, which is bizarre? If you guys don't know this, and I do, and I'm not the Pokemon guy, this is pretty cool. But so you know how, like, obviously every version of Pokemon has had 2 versions.
Right.
Except Yellow.
And then they have like they always have like this kind of combined one at the end, right? Yellow and
Crystal.
Well, do you know Yellow was originally there was meant to be 2?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they had plans for a Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Pink, and the Yellow was going to have Pikachu and Pink was going to have Jigglypuff. And they opted against it because at the time that they released it, they were trying to break the Western market with Pokemon, and a Pikachu was like way more known. So they thought, well, if we release essentially the same game, but one has the little character that everyone knows on it, and the other one has a character that nobody knows on it, it was going to be pointless. So they opted to drop Pokemon Pink and just release Pokemon Yellow.
As far as the games that you play then, Tony, have you ever come across a game where you felt like, okay, the business side of things is interfering with my enjoyment of this game, or you feel like a little bit exploited, or like
I think
anything like that?
I feel like the only time that's really happened, and this was ages ago when MMOs were like still really new. WoW had just come out, but there was a game called Motorcity Online, and it was an EA game.
Oh wow!
And it was essentially an MMO racing game. So you would build up your.
I remember this.
Yeah, you build up like classic muscle cars, and they all had very specific real world parts that you could swap out. And depending on the parts, they might not work very well together. So your car might run like shit. Or if you like optimized it, the car would run really good, and you could just blow everybody away. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. And then they canceled the service. And like I'd been paying this online subscription, and I had paid the amount for the base game, and then they just kind of canceled it. And they were like, "Well, if you still want to, you've got a free copy of Sims Online for you to play." I'm like, I don't. It's not even like the same thing remotely. And that kind of pissed me off because I was having so much fun with Motor City Online. But the real reason was, their business decision was nobody was playing this game. So
they just cut the service. They're like, screw the people who paid,
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense that they'd cut that service if they weren't making any money off of it. It sucked for me at the time, but and it sucks now because it's like, man, I wouldn't mind going back and playing that. And I kind of sometimes think maybe there's like, I think I still have the game disc somewhere. I kind of wonder if there's like some,
like fan server.
Yeah, fan server or something. Mm-hmm. So I might try to look that up at some point. But yeah, that's really it.
Do you know what? It's like I can literally almost like feel Justin he knows he knows what we're talking about. Yeah, like I can feel him being like coming in like in a ghostly presence.
Okay, what does Justin have to say?
Because I can guarantee you Justin's take on this would be that basically with something like that, like yes, it does suck, but you pay for a service like from the start.
Yeah.
You are paying for a service knowing that service can at any time end, and it's totally within their rights to just turn it off.
Yep.
So like I know that's how he would look at it. I'm a little bit more empathetic and I would say that although that is true, and it's as much as it's completely their prerogative to turn those servers off at any point, like if they don't feel like it's making them enough money, shut it down, right? Fine.
Well,
but then it's my prerogative to not play that game. Like, it's my prerogative to go and buy a game that is on disc or on cartridge that I know that you can't shut a server down. You can't do it. Like, I've got that game.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I look at it. I'm like, if you want to play those games, that's all cool, but that is something that kind of turns me off a bit, is if it's like an MMO or like some sort of paid for service thing.
If I may speak with Ghost Justin for a moment, I have a thought that may appeal to his business brain a bit, which is that, yes, it is within their right to do that, but the problem is that it damages the reputation of their online services, because whenever you sign up for MMOs or any kind of, even with like fighting games sometimes, there is a certain amount of trust you have to place within the developer that they're not going to do that to you, because let's say they do that to you once, like Motor City. Are you going to buy their next MMO when it comes out? You're like, hell no, you just did that to me once.
Yeah.
So I think even if they can do that from a business side, I think it hurts their reputation moving forward, because people aren't going to trust them the second time around.
And who knows, how long was Sims Online even a thing? I couldn't tell you.
But this is the thing, is like, I think he would probably say, that it might affect, your trust in their next game that they release. But from a business viewpoint, if they see that the numbers have gone down and they can actually definitely equate that their numbers and their figures have been affected because of what they did last time, that they'll change that up. They'll do something different. They're not going to like just keep repeating that if it means they're making a loss. Because let's be honest, they don't actually care about you. They care that you buy their game, you pay for their service, you're playing it. once they've got your money, that's all they care about.
They don't care.
But I wonder how much the server upkeep for that is. Like, if it's really digging into their bottom lines that hard. I have no idea.
Back in the very early 2000s, yeah, I'm pretty sure that server upkeep was probably quite
really expensive.
I mean, you think about it. Like, infrastructure now, it's all over the place. I mean, you could make a Minecraft server at home, plug it into the wall, and the only thing you're paying for is, maybe the extra data usage if you don't already, have.
I know a dude who has a server in his house.
Yeah, it's just you can just do that now. But like back then, not so much. I mean, you had to, because whenever I was playing, I was dialing into the damn game.
Wow. So it's yeah.
Yeah, it was
like crazy.
It was probably my junior year of high school, so it would have been like 2001 or something like that. So I mean, like back then, cable internet was available and infrastructure for online games was available, but it wasn't as probably it couldn't have been as optimized as it is today. Justin would have something to say about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, he would. But that's very much his side of things. I can't channel that bit.
Yeah.
So, from my own experience, because I made a video about this, kind of related to this a while ago. I think 2 days ago. That's a while ago to me. About Dead or Alive 6. And Dead or Alive 6 right now is getting the boot because of its, Dead or Alive is known for its DLC practices where basically they charge, or they could charge you hundreds of dollars to buy sexy costumes for your girls. And it's basically, I say in my video that it kind of has a dual life where half of the game is a really amazing fighting game, which is why I'm defending it. And then the other half of the game is like a softcore type game. And it's like...
It's cheesecake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's like that's kind of how the brand has developed, unfortunately. And it has its pros and cons. The pro is that it actually is still alive, where everyone who says, oh, this is horrible, it's like, I don't like it. But at the same time, there's a similar series that did everything right called Virtua Fighter, and it died. It was a commercial flop. It was one of the best games ever created. Virtua Fighter 5 is one of the best fighting games, if not the best fighting game ever created. Commercial flop because it didn't have that, didn't
have titties.
It didn't have the tits. It didn't have the. It didn't have the money side of things either, and at least the console release. And the franchise has died. Everyone loves it. It has a pristine reputation, but it's dead. And so that's kind of what I'm saying with Dead or Alive 6 is, I was saying in the Dead or Alive 6, all this DLC stuff, I don't like it. It's ridiculous. But at the same time, if you just buy the game, it basically is a solid fighting game package. It's just this DLC stuff is like this ugly side of things that you have to kind of just look past.
But
because it's keeping the game alive.
Because it's keeping the game alive.
But is the DLC for Dead or Alive 6 entirely cosmetic? Or is it
here's the thing,
new characters?
So the new characters are you have to buy characters, but this has just become the fighting game thing. This is not a Dead or Alive specific thing. Smash, Tech, every fighting game does this now. So when you compare it to Tekken and Smash, it's actually less characters you have to buy. There's really just two you have to buy if you really want them, Mai and the newer one, and then the other ones you can just kind of ignore, to be honest. But so I think just the reputation, though, has really, really damaged the game. So from a pragmatic standpoint, for me, I'm really happy with my purchase of it, even though all these DLC issues, I wish they were just gone. But there have been times where I have bought a game that I felt straight up lied to or exploited, and it did really negatively affect my perception. So I have two examples that come to mind. One of them was actually not talked about that much anymore, but it was actually a really big deal. I think it was Killzone 2. So when they showed Killzone 2 at one of the E3s, they doctored up that footage. You can even look at it now. Zack will probably show it in the video. It looked absolutely insane. The graphics look like modern graphics today. Then it looked out of control. And when I saw it the first time, I remember seeing it the first time, my mind was blown. I was like, because this was when the PS3 was coming out. It was basically to sell the PS3. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And my friends were all like, oh, we're getting 360s. And I showed them Killzone 2. I was like, don't get a 360. Look at this shit. This is... The PS3 is going to be the greatest console ever made. Look at this. And so I got a PS3. I got Killzone 2. Played it like, what the fuck happened? This is not the shit they were showing in the trailer. So that literally moved like a $500 console off of basically false advertising. I thought that was really, really shady. I ended up liking my PS3, of course, so it's, it's not like a great stain in my life, but at the same time, it's like, man, I mean, that's just straight up. Yeah. I think that's really, really shady. That
I remember
that example.
I remember that happening, and it was, I think, exactly the same thing happened with Alien Colonial Marines, didn't it?
Right, yeah.
Like exactly the same thing. They basically showed stuff that wasn't the game. Like, they showed stuff that was clearly, like, doctored and made to look fantastic.
And then people watching this will see the video of Killzone 2.
Yeah.
It looks crazy. And it was actually a big deal at the time because, remember, this was the days where the FPS war was huge between Halo was on the Xbox 360. Everyone was getting 360s to get the new Halo. Everyone. And then the PS2 had kind of a weak shooter lineup, but it's like big title was Killzone. Everyone's like, oh, Killzone on the PS2 is like the Halo equivalent or whatever. And so when Killzone 2 was coming out on PS3, this was actually a really big deal because it was, for a lot of people, the decider. Do I get a 360? Do I get a PS3? Is Killzone 2 as good as Halo 3, basically? And according to those trailers, it was, but it was just no.
That kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy VII. The commercials for Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if you guys remember this.
I've seen them.
Commercials to Final Fantasy VII at the time only showed the cutscenes. It did not show the gameplay. So
that's a little bit of grime.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of grime.
And like the thing was, I remember like being super excited to play Final Fantasy VII. My buddy finally got it, so I went over to his house because I didn't have a PlayStation 1 yet. I went over to his house and he turned on the game and I was just like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? It's blocky bullshit. I still ended up getting a PS1 to get Final Fantasy VII, and I still ended up loving Final Fantasy VII. But yeah, I mean, like they did that shit back in #97,
Yeah. Yeah. Another one that is very notorious, but I have to bring it up because I actually don't buy EA games anymore because of this, was the Battlefront 1 that came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought Battlefront 1, me and my brother, because we loved the ones on the Xbox, the Battlefront series.
Yeah.
And when we bought that game, it was really the first time ever where I felt legitimately ripped off, where it had nothing. It had like no content. I didn't have a single player or anything really. Like the single player was a joke. And we'd spend our money and we planned to like spend the weekend playing it. And then we went to play online, and the online was pay to win, and it was horrible.
Yeah,
we played it.
I mean, it's like the thing.
We played it for about 5 hours. Then we're like, we're never playing this again. And I have never bought another EA game since then. Yeah. So that was just horrible.
The thing with that Battlefront is like, some people might make the argument of, well, if you played the original, 2 Battlefront games, which are phenomenal, maybe, it was like the fans kind of putting too much expectation on the new product. And it's like, no, sorry.
But there was no content.
Yeah, even if the previous ones hadn't have existed, if you take that Battlefront game in isolation, like you said, it's like a quarter of a game. It's not even half a game. Yeah. There's nothing there.
There's nothing.
There's not a game.
I was
there.
Straight up shocked. I was like, oh my god, because that was the first time I've ever been like that ripped off before.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I would agree. I remember that, and I remember people saying like, there's not even a single player campaign in it.
Nothing.
And so like I was considering getting that because I'm a Star Wars fan, and I played the demo, and it was a gorgeous game, very, very good looking game. And I was like, oh man, this could be pretty cool. And then I heard it didn't have a single player campaign. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not buying that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that was grimy about it was they pretended like it did, because it technically, if you want to count like these stages that barely have anything to do with. I mean, it's basically not there, but they tried to pass it off like it was a real mode. It was horrible.
Oh yeah, I remember like exactly what you're saying there. I remember there being teaser videos and that showed a couple of rebels running through a canyon. I think Admiral Akbar coming up on the little thing and being like, oh yes, you've got a mission and be careful, it's a trap and all of that. And it made it totally look like they clearly cut it in a way where it made it look like, oh my god, this is going to be
campaign.
like a full campaign. This looks amazing. No, it was like that was taken from one of those like 10-minute survival missions.
Yeah.
Of which there are like 5 or something. Like that was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
So this leads me into a question I wanted to get your guys' take on, because I think it's actually a pretty complicated one. A lot of people, when they talk about these shady practices, one of the justifications, which sometimes I feel like can hold up and sometimes doesn't, is the fact that just game developing has become so massive and expensive. And it does seem like gamers' expectations have sort of grown. Like, we expect more content for lower prices. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you feel like that's true, or do you feel like we're just giving a pass to these companies or being like shills for them? What do you think?
I guess for me, it just really depends on the game you're playing, the games you're playing. Like the games I'm playing.
Yeah, the games you're playing.
The games I'm playing. No, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like I'm getting a good amount for my money. The last big game I bought was Dragon Quest XI. I'm still not done with it. I'm put like 70, 80 hours into that game. That's I got the Switch version. I got my money's worth for that game. No, I mean, like for the games I play, I don't really feel that way at all. Like a lot of the games I'll play are indie games that are like $20 anyway, Well,
indie games are a great thing to point out, because especially, in shmups and stuff like that, like I feel like this is the place where gamers' expectations, I think, are a bit too high, because we basically, among indie devs, it feels like it's kind of the opposite of AAA, where the player base kind of, I feel like, can sometimes bully the indie devs around a bit.
It's like
where they're like expected to.
They want these 80-hour plus games that only cost $10.
Exactly. Yeah. Where it feels like
what how can you expect that? Like there's like 3 people developing this game.
So I think like you make a good point there. I think like it's the difference between like your AAA developers and your indie developers.
Like a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, your indie developers probably do bear some of the backlash and that of what I would say is how AAA developers have trained their audience.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I don't think that it's not us expecting too much. It's that we've been taught and told over years, this is the benchmark. This is what you will get for your money. So indie developers sometimes get, the backlash of that, where, people are like, well, why isn't this an 80-hour RPG? And it's like, well, because I'm one guy in my cupboard making this. Like, can you just, and I'm charging you like $5. So it's, there is like a balance there, but like, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, I have seen a lot of people, a lot of fans and that are massively happy and supportive of indie games, and and you do get a really nice balance of like what the amount of fun and gaming and whatnot you get out of what you've paid for that product. But with your AAA, like where I then wouldn't give any kind of leeway is like if you've got an indie developer where they've released a game and people are kind of giving them a bit of slack about it because they're like, oh well, this game's a bit short and that. It's like, well, yeah, okay, it's made by like a very small team.
Our shmup people deal with that. It like plagues the genre now. Yeah, like you can't release a shmup now because everyone's like, why is this an hour-long game? It's like, it's a shmup. Yeah. Like if you go over an hour, it's bad. Like it's supposed to be, actually a shmup should be like 30 to 45 minutes, in my opinion. Like if you go an hour long, that's a hell of a shmup. I think there's actually a really good kind of thought experiment that I want to ask Tony about, because I think he'll have good insight on this. So when I'm talking about player expectations, especially with indie games, I think a really good example is Stardew Valley, right? You're a big fan of that, right, Tony?
Mm-hmm.
So Stardew Valley is based on Harvest Moon for the most part, and other games in that genre.
Yeah.
So when Harvest Moon came out on the Super Nintendo, I know because I bought it, that's a full-priced game. That's a $60 game back in 90s money. But let's say Stardew Valley came out on Steam at $60.
No one would have bought it.
Yeah, exactly. So what are your thoughts as a fan of Stardew Valley? And you saw it came out for $60. What, just in your brain, what would you have bought it? Would you have been like, yeah, this is worth $60, or what do you think?
I don't think I would have purchased it for $60 up front. However, I have purchased Stardew Valley on the Switch and at least twice on the PC, and I know my wife has purchased it for iPad, for the iPad. And if it were to come out on another console that I was interested in playing it on, I would probably purchase it again for the full price of $15-20. So I have put $60 into that game, just over various different outlets of it, just because I'm such a fan of it and I like it so much. And if it comes out for a platform that I feel like I'll play it on, I'm gonna buy it again. I don't mind dropping another $15-20 on it. And if they, the thing is that he continues to support it too. So there's all these patches that come out for free. I feel like it's a freaking bargain for $15-20 with the amount of content that you get for that game.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Knowing what I know now about the game, if I would have known that back when the game first came out, and if it had come out for $60, I would probably drop $60 on it.
Yeah, that's why I feel like with indie games, I sort of defend the DLC pricing structure where, because they just, with the ecosystem of gaming now, people don't value indie games the same ways they do AAA. They may say they do, but their wallets do not. So if you drop this badass Stardew Valley for $60, it could be the best game of the year. Most people will not buy it simply for the fact that it's a $60 indie game.
Yep.
But what you can do is you can release it for $20, get people to play it, and they're like, oh, okay, this is actually legit. Then do a DLC for $20. They're like, okay, this DLC sick. And then do another DLC for $20. There's your $60.
Yeah.
I think you've got to remember that the landscape has changed massively, like with technology. So, the reason that you've got like your Harvest Moon on the SNES, and you don't have indie games is because you couldn't have released indie games back then. Like there wasn't the platform. And also you can't really compare Stardew Valley to Harvest Moon, given that they were released like 20 odd years apart. Like it's,
well, you can
Stardew Valley
from a content perspective though. Like,
yeah, but Stardew Valley
like
isn't
a book released 20 years apart. The content, like an ebook and a regular book released 20 apart, you can compare the content, but you cannot compare the business surrounding the two, right? Like you can't.
Well,
compare...
I still don't think you can fully compare the content because, like, I mean, I'm not, I'm definitely on board with like Stardew Valley being value for money, but like, it's not, whereas like Harvest Moon, when Harvest Moon came out on the SNES, that was the peak of what that technology could do. Stardew Valley is not the peak of what current technology can do. Like you are definitely getting
the dev costs are like even adjusting for inflation are massively different between Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley.
Yeah,
the dev costs, like Stardew Valley was done literally by one dude. So Harvest Moon had a whole team trying to maximize, and they had to use all these dev tools and all these specialized hardware to put it on the Super Nintendo. I mean, I get like the content could be comparable, but like you can't value the content if you're if the costs to create the game are so vastly different.
Yeah, that's the question I'm getting at is, do we value that? Do we value the developing costs when we're looking at these price points? Like, I'm not saying that's a yes or no answer. I'm just like, in our brains, do our brains like check that box? Like, this was made on a budget, so it's less inherently expensive than something like GTA 5, where they employed a billion people to.
Yeah, I think
it.
there's probably I would say for the large part people don't like. I can't imagine that a lot of people look at, when people are like scrolling through Steam or whatever on the store, and there's not. I doubt people are looking at that and going like, well, actually, like they probably only spent like 100,000 to make that. And like,
Right.
oh, they spent. Nobody's looking at that. Like, what you're looking at is you're looking at the game, you're looking at how much it's going to cost you. Like that's where it's at, and I think that's why you get situations like this now, and especially the fact it's now so much easier for indie devs to get their games out there on different platforms. It's just smart business. It's like the people or the guy that makes Stardew Valley, he knows he's not making GTA. Like, he knows he can't put that out there for $60. Like, but what he does know is that he's made a really damn good game, and he'll get a shitload of people to play it if he puts it out there for like $15, $20.
Yeah, and I do feel like when people talk about these issues of, like being exploited in shady business practice, which I think are real, I think there's actually a pretty logical way to combat that, which is just start playing and buying more indie games, because indie games, and I do, hang around indie game developers a little bit more now and talk with them, like, they're extremely pro-consumer, like to the point of almost to being a fault at sometimes. Like, think of like Shovel Knight, where they did years worth of free content
buy
for like
one copy of Shovel Knight. If you have your original copy of Shovel Knight,
you
still have all of this content that's coming out like 2 days ago or whatever.
It's almost to the point, like, what are you doing? Like, this is like absurd.
Charge us, we will buy this. You know,
it's like the bigger the company gets, the less about giving you, the consumer, the best value for money it becomes.
Right, because they get all this overhead, and they're all like, okay, we gotta pay the this team, that team, the janitor needs money. Like,
I mean,
interesting.
So kind of like this actually kind of nicely goes on to something else I was going to bring up, is which will kind of play into something, Tony, I think you want to bring up, is so what a company that I'm not particularly fond of at the minute, because they just keep seeming to like just do shady things or do stuff where it's like they clearly don't care about anything except the dollar, is 2K. So we've raised this on previous episodes, and I'm sure Zack will love the opportunity to put some more clips of this on the video version. But 2K released WWE 2K20, and it was broken. Like, it's a broken game. It's still fucking broken. Like, it still doesn't work. And the problem is like that's just the start of it. Like, the fact that they got to a point where they could have gone, you know what, this really isn't ready. We need to pull the plug. We need to say, right, look, sorry, fans, we're not going to be releasing a game this year. We're going to, we need more dev time, whatever, right? Now, coincidentally, that is actually what they've done this year. They're not releasing their yearly game this year. They're giving their devs that extra time. After they got all of the and I mean, after they've got the absolute shitstorm of like fans, berating them, but they then did something else. Oh, they've done something else where I'm like, you've shown your hand. So to give you kind of a completely opposite end of the spectrum of this, right? Obviously, lots of companies are trying to, wherever possible, port their games to the Switch, because the Switch has become like massively popular, and if you can get your game over there, you can get a new audience, you can get more sales. Like, cool. Now, you look at something like CD Projekt Red, and I don't think they did the port. I think they might have outsourced the port, but they managed to get The Witcher 3 with all its DLC and everything on the Switch, and not only that, all of it's on that cartridge, right?
Yeah.
All of it. There's no
crazy.
Download. There's nothing. Yeah, there's no like, oh, once you pop it in, you now need to download all of this, or you need to download a 20 gig file that's half the fucking game. No, it's all on that cartridge. And the reason it's all on that cartridge is because they decided to spend a little bit more to get the slightly bigger capacity cartridge. 2K. What did they do? They went, oh, well, we want some of this. We want some of this action. So we're going to release... what did they announce? They announced the Bioshock Trilogy the Borderlands trilogy, which I think is going to be it's Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, and the pre-sequel, again with all DLC and all of that, and XCOM 2 with all of its DLC. But they didn't want to go that extra mile, did they? They didn't want to buy those bigger cartridges. So Bioshock, I believe, just has Bioshock 1 on it, and you need to download 2 and 3, or 2 and Infinite. Borderlands, I think, only has I think it has a bit of each game on it, and you need to download the rest of the game and all the DLC. XCOM 2, same thing. And it's that just shows, again, how like you said, like grimy of a company you are,
right?
That you so want to get every last little nickel and dime, right? And I'm not against companies obviously trying to make money. That's why they're in business. They're not in business to make a game that we like necessarily. They're in business to make something that we will pay money for, right? They don't care necessarily how good of a game it is or not. At the end of the day, they're in the business to make money. So I can kind of understand it from the viewpoint of right, well, if we put all of these on, the 16 gig cartridge instead of the 32 gig cartridge or whatever, that'll save them a ton of money, which then goes into their profit margin. I understand that, but it's business practices like that make me go, well, I'll go and buy The Witcher then, and I'm not going to buy any of your shit, because if you're not going to give me something that shows that you appreciate the customer, and you appreciate the fact that especially nowadays you've got when people are buying physical media, they're generally buying physical media to preserve it, because
they want that discrete release.
Yeah, they want it there. They want something that can sit in your, you can sit in your collection and you've got it. I don't want to buy games where if I don't immediately go and download all of the content and the extra shit that I need, that if the servers go down or if they pull their content off the servers or whatever,
which happens.
Which happens. I've now got just a piece of plastic that is, it's. Whereas with The Witcher, I can buy that, and I know that no matter what happens, that's the whole thing is there. I've got it. Doesn't matter. I can still pop that cartridge in my Switch and play the entire Witcher, or the Switcher, as I've called it on that. But I can play all of it. That to me, that's the difference here.
Yeah, I think
that's the big difference.
I think for me too, the dividing line is when companies are willing to degrade the quality of their products strictly for profits. That's when I start to get off board, right? I'm not going to be totally idealistic and say, oh, okay, DOA has DLC in it, so I won't buy it even though I really like it. I don't go that far, but when I start to see that, like you said, this is a good example, right? With the cartridges, you literally are degrading the quality of your release strictly for profit margins. It gets to the point where if they start releasing games for the PS4 and they use single layer DVD and okay, just download the rest of the game now because we don't want to buy dual layer DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever. I just feel from a capitalist perspective, right, even it's the superior product should win anyway, right? So like you said, you see their janky product and you see The Witcher that hits all the boxes, so they just they deserve the sort of profits there. So I also thought before we'd end this off, what are some examples of some oh, this is cool moments, or moments where you felt like the companies did do something solid? You just mentioned CD Projekt Red.
I really want to bring up something here.
Go ahead.
Final Fantasy 14 again. I am paying a monthly subscription for it. I did buy a base game for it. They do have some nickel and dimey stuff, I will admit. Especially if you want to be up to date with the content and you just want to get up to date with the content, you have to buy a story progression, and then you have to buy a level, separately you have to buy a level progression where it bumps you up to that level. That kind of sucks. However, if you've been playing the game this whole time, they are constantly, every couple of months, every 2 months, you get a brand new content patch that has not only new story items, but they'll have new side quests that have complete trials or complete dungeons or complete 24-man raids, all of this stuff. They just dump content on you every couple of months, and it's a lot of content, and it's not bad content either. It is quality content. It's how did you guys have time to make this in the last 2 months? It's just like this. You're not feeling like you're getting stuff piecemeal because they're nickel and diming you. You feel like you're getting rewarded for giving them your money every month, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like, you know, like we kind of touched on it earlier about, you know, some people are against DLC and stuff like that. And like I've known people that are just absolutely against, like will not buy any DLC. They're like, no, if it wasn't on the original release, then I'm not interested. Like you either give me the full game or I'm not buying extra bits to your game. But you have situations like that where it's like,
I think there's a lot of gray area there too. Even if you're a purist, even if you're a 100% purist, I feel like had DLC been a thing in the past, there could have been a lot of like really justified uses of it, even in like the Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. Like, there's even times where you feel like the companies, I think, what was it, like Super Mario 3 or something, where years later they had all these, in Super Mario World, where they had all these stages they just could not fit. And so then when they re-released, I think it was Super Mario 3 on like the Game Boy scanner or something. You could get the extra stages that they could never fit in there.
You know, Super Mario Brothers 3. They might have done it with World, but I remember that. Yeah, the Game Boy e-reader, they had a bunch of extra stages that they didn't use that they threw onto that, and it was like a negligible price.
So I have my example as well. It's a bittersweet example because it starts nice and ends sad, and that is the company Blizzard, where for those people who may not have been PC gamers back in the day, Blizzard were the bomb.com. At the time,
awesome.
They were they were the homie company back then. Like it was, let me give you an example. So me and my friends were all really into StarCraft Broodwar. But I actually had some friends who were less economically fortunate than myself. And so there were times, I'm not kidding, where I would actually buy my friends games strictly to play them against them. So it's like kind of charitable and kind of selfish at the same time. But StarCraft Broodwar had this cool thing called a spawn install, where if you gave them your disc, just gave them the disc, they could install StarCraft on their computer and then play it against you without having to buy the game. And that was built in the spawn installs. So I was like the spawn install setup. Like I'd give all my friends spawn installs and we'd all play Brood War against each other. I mean, and then there was BattleNet, and then there was the the campaign creator, and then there's LAN, and that was all free. I mean, it was insane. And like I always felt like over the years, Brood War always Blizzard always kind of knew what the players were wanting, and like did a really good job with all of that stuff. And then Diablo 3 comes out, and it's like, it's a changed company, man. It's like a huge change.
I don't even think it was just Diablo 3. It was
where do you think the turning point was?
Yeah, maybe it was Diablo 3.
Because remember, Diablo 3 came out with the in-game shop where you bought DLC weapons, and everyone was like, "Holy shit! Like this is." I remember hearing about that. I was like, that doesn't sound like
I think I was actually out of the country when Diablo 3 like first started, like was first announced and all that. I think I missed most of Diablo 3. I didn't actually play Diablo 3 until the Switch version.
I never played it. Like
it's all right. It's not it's not great. It's okay.
It is fun. Yeah, it is fun. I can totally see why, you know, fans of the franchise. I mean, I'm a fan of the franchise.
It's not nearly as good as 1 or 2.
Yeah. That's why I didn't get it. It was more like I saw it. I was like, this doesn't look as good as 2, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of stopped after Diablo 2 anyway with like my Blizzard gaming stuff. Well, I guess actually not true. Warcraft 3, I played a shitload of that. But
yeah, I did too.
Yeah. But that was kind of my story. Now look at Blizzard today. It's like, I don't think like the original crew is even there, right? It's like a whole different set of people. It's Blizzard by name only, basically. Yeah. So if you want like a perfect case study of a company changing, there you go.
Yeah, it was like that was one of the sad things that happened with Marvel Heroes, but it was basically Diablo, but the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
you know, you over time they released tons of superheroes from Marvel and tons of like costumes and stuff for them, and like it was total fan service, and it unfortunately just got shut down like not that long ago.
So to end the episode out, we talked a lot about kind of these issues wrong with the business practices, the inflated costs of production. What are our thoughts on possible alternatives or solutions, at least for players, and maybe if you want to go as far as the companies? You can
Don't buy the
Tony.
games you don't buy.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say.
Yeah, definitely vote with your wallet. So like if you don't like what a company is doing, don't buy their game. You know, that's what I mentioned earlier with Activision and Call of Duty. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like how they're treating their fans, and I'm now, unless it massively changes, I'm never buying a Call of Duty game again. Because I'm not getting suckered into that. You know, you can put out as many glitzy trailers as you want. If I know that following those trailers is going to be, you know, just endless ways to nickel and dime us, I'm not buying your game. I think to try and end this positively, because I think this has been quite a negative episode. But to try and end it kind of positively, I think, and I don't like this is going to be an interesting one because some people might be split on this. But I've actually personally been really impressed with Microsoft and how much they've 180'd. So it didn't feel like that long
with the
ago.
Xbox?
Yeah, like it didn't feel like that long ago that they
Xbox
were like
One.
that they were like the devil. It was like, you know, they announced the Xbox One and then they were like, you know, oh, but it needs to be online all the time for you to be able to play your games and stuff like that. And it just everything they were doing, it was like, what are you thinking? And they started to change that. They took the feedback and they went, yeah, okay, this is stupid. Actually, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And then over time, it's got to the point where they've then gone, you know, they've started doing things like their Game Pass, where for a really reasonable amount of money, they are chucking like a ridiculously good library of games at you. Like, you know, if you've got an Xbox, the library is obscene. If you've got the PC, which that's the version I've got, where I've got the PC Game Pass, it's a smaller library, but it's still ridiculous. Like, you know, that is what for me it's probably about $5 or something for you guys, but for me it's $3.99 a month, right? For Microsoft Game Pass on PC, they dropped Gears of War 5 on that the day it came out. Like, you know, things like that. Just
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, $3.99 a month. That it had, like, I played the entirety of like Forza Horizon 4, I think it was, which had not been out long. There it is, yeah, free. Well, you know, not free, but you know what I mean. Just like, there you go, just on Game Pass. Yeah, Gears 5. Based. Yeah, subscription, but Gears 5 they chucked on there. Like, there are games coming out that they're chucking on Game Pass where it's like, it's not, oh, these are slightly older games that have already been out for like 6 months to a year. It's like, no, launch day, here it is on Game Pass, or you can go and buy it. You know, like, it's insane. And when you couple that with the fact that they've then also been working really well with Nintendo and kind of trying to get a really good working relationship with them, you know, to the point where we've started seeing, you know, things like different IPs and stuff, you know, like crossing over and them letting Nintendo use certain things. I mean, it's meant that we could have Banjo-Kazooie in Smash, like, you know, things like that, because obviously Microsoft own Rare.
I really liked the smart delivery. I don't know if PS4 is going to do that or PS5, but smart delivery is basically like cross-play on crack, where if you buy something for the Xbox One, you can play it on the new Xbox. If you buy something for the new Xbox, it goes on the old Xbox One. Because I that really annoyed me with PS3 and PS4, where they had cross-play for some games, but they didn't for others. So, yeah, I like that as well.
Yeah, and it's the like, just quickly the thing that they're working on. I still can't remember the name of it, but it's basically their streaming thing. So they're essentially doing what Google Stadia has tried to do, but they're actually going to do it well. And it's that, which means that you could have an Xbox One, and we could be like, you know, a couple of iterations down the line of consoles, but you could still be sat there on your Xbox One playing the latest game because your console doesn't need to deal with everything. Like, they're streaming the content to you. So it's essentially what Google Stadia has tried to do, but they're actually waiting until the technology is there.
Right.
And you know, for a company to put themselves in a position where they're like not trying to sell you the latest console, like they're positioning themselves at a point where you could keep your Xbox One and still keep playing the latest stuff. Like that, that's the kind of business, you know, like the way to handle your company where you will get me on board.
Yeah, you have to give it to Microsoft. They're going hard in the paint right now, for sure, which I think is a good idea. So to close this out, I'll give my thoughts on what we could do, you know, as consumers. I think there's actually a little bit more to mine. I agree definitely with voting with your wallets. You know, don't buy Battlefront 3, for God's sake. But another one is I actually think we also should try and start moving away from this sort of like, I don't know what you call it, but like there's an industry of like hate on YouTube and stuff where we're like giving strength to these problems, even though we don't feel like we are. Like Warcraft 3 comes out, everyone talks about Warcraft 3 for like a week or whatever because of the issues or whatever like that. But I feel like if we start taking all that energy and start using it to promote indie games and talk about indie games and actually like make that step, because I think people like want to kind of get away from these AAA things, but we also are kind of just stuck, never kind of moving over to indie. So I think if players start moving and supporting more indie games and more supporting like actually like making content around them. And
so you're saying instead of putting all of our energy at screaming at AAA developers,
yes,
just ignore the AAA developer stuff and just put our energy towards people that are actually putting out good content that we like.
Right. Yeah. Not only is it less annoying, but I actually feel like you are giving actually a lot more strength to these developers than you think. Like if you think of like Warcraft 3, that thing took over YouTube for like 3 days. Whereas if it came out, no one talked about it. No one's like, screw this, it's stupid. And then talked about some indie game or some like other game, like, oh, buy this. Like you're taking a lot of power away from these, you know, from Blizzard, because you know, like at some point, if you give people enough bad press, it's still sort of an advertising to at some point where, like, I think if you just quickly brush it off, like, don't buy Warcraft 3, okay, buy this. Like, I think that's actually going to be a pretty big game changer, to be honest.
I think the irony in that, like, especially like I've been bitching about these companies for the past 2 hours, but the key is exactly that. It's like, don't, you know, put your effort into what you love, not into hating what you don't. Like,
yeah, because I think hate actually generates them revenue more than you think. So
yeah, and as we all know, hate leads to the dark side. So
well, thanks for coming on, my dudes. Any final words before we head out?
Nope, not from me.
No, it's all good. Yeah,
thanks for tuning in.
Cool. See you later.
See ya.
Oh, I have got a very important question for both of you. This will either mean something to you or it won't. But do you know who this guy is?
He looks hella familiar. Hold on. Hold it. Wood.
No idea.
That face looks really familiar.
Oh, it should if you've seen any memes or any kind of like joke emails or anything like that over this whole pandemic.
Is he an athlete of some kind?
No,
like a basketball player?
No, so this guy, he unfortunately he passed away like a few years ago. But he used to be a porn actor. And he's this big black guy with he's very well endowed. And basically, like, when all of this stuff started, things would get sent around like work group chats and things like that, saying like, you know, oh, click, you know, here's the latest update on what's going on with, you know, COVID-19 and that, and you click on it, and then it's like, bam, just a picture of a big black, you know. So it was like kind of a joke, but it's become insane. Like, he keeps getting put into everything. Like, if you've seen any of the kind of memes and stuff that keep getting sent around like work groups or just like he's everywhere. He's literally everywhere. And then we were like, oh my god, you can get T-shirts with his face on now. So there's loads of scaremongering and stuff on there.
Oh yeah. But remember when I got sick, I had people messaging me that I was like gonna die and stuff. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. But no, I think Animal Crossing and this guy is what is getting me through this so far. So.
Yeah, I still don't know if I had it or not. It's like they said no, but they're like, but you could have. And it kind of showed this whole situation kind of showed me how valued you are in society, right? Like Tom Hanks gets it. Everyone's freaking out. Doctors going there. I show up, me and my family. The doctor's like, get the hell out of here. You're fine. Go home and die or live. You know, whatever happens to you, it's not a big deal. It's like, wow. I guess I know my standing in society now.
Yeah, it fucking sucks.
I mean, to be fair, like if you end up, banging out a few great films and win a couple of Oscars and that, maybe you'll get seen better by the doctor. But
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like we really see who's valued and who isn't valued, right?
Yeah, you become a national treasure and you will get better service. So.
There you go.